Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm going to share some thoughts about the Magic Mountain. I just want to share my experience. This will not be a summary or a literary critique. I just want to share with you how much I adored the experience of this book that I've had for like the last year. I got this book last year and I started reading it, and for whatever reason I also downloaded the audiobook from Audible. I'll link below which version it is. The narrator is astounding. I don't remember why I did that, because I got to tell you, I don't listen to audiobooks. The only other book that I adored by audiobook and that I would highly recommend is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. So that's how often I listen to audiobooks. But I really took advantage of listening to it every time I was in the car, whether it was just running an errand, going to the grocery store, and it just shaved off some time. And maybe this book works well in that way because there's expanses of diatribes where especially Herr Settembrini, the older guy that's at the Sanatorium, goes off on tangents. It's a character in the book, the way that these tangents are set up by, or the way that certain characters, because they have the time, can go off into great detail about a great many things. So maybe because of the nature of that, then when I got almost halfway through, so maybe a little over a third through, I started to pick the book up again, and I never looked back to the audiobook. So I didn't listen to very much of the audiobook based on the fact that it's 36 hours long. But it was good to give me a boost and get me going. Just a really basic outline to set the stage of where we are in this book, because we're only in one place. And that is the Swiss sanatorium called Berghof that Hans Castorp, our main character, is traveling to take a break. He's been in Polytechnic school, he's taken a big exam, and he's about to enter into an engineering firm, a very well-to-do, well-known, prestigious engineering firm, the one that he wanted to end up in, but he's about to start an apprenticeship. And he's not looking well, he's not feeling all that well, and I believe his great uncle, who was his guardian after his grandfather and his mom and dad passed away, recommended that he go and seek some higher mountain air to do him good. And he realized, oh, well, my cousin Joachim, I don't know if it's pronounced Joachim or Joachim, but I will say Joachim, is a soldier, and he has some lung issues, and he's been up in Berghof. So off Hans Castorp sets. He is ready to become an engineer apprentice, and he's happy to take a little 3-week break to visit Joachim. And they meet each other in the train station, and the narrator of this book is as much of a character as anybody else. I'll say he is so enjoyable. I'm not quite sure. Is he a patient of the sanatorium? I don't know, but he's omniscient to a point, but he's very close. He's very close to us, and he wants to tell us this story. I think that the narrator, if I'm not going crazy, but it just felt like the narrator actually becomes more and more in the story as you get to the last third of the book, and it's just so much fun. So that's the framework of the story. Hans is astounded by all this quirky weirdness in the sanatorium. They're doing things way differently. They're taking things way serious, and they don't have a lot to do. And they eat like 5 times a day because they have 2 breakfasts, And at night, they take a rest cure out on the deck. It's freezing cold. They don't heat the rooms. There's snow on the ground all the time. And they take their rest cures very seriously. And no, they do not leave and then come back and leave and come back. Joachim has a sense of time. Time has changed. So when the good doctor says that Joachim may need to stay up in the at the sanatorium for maybe another 6 months, Joachim knows it's probably going to be more than 6 months because his sense of time has changed. It doesn't have an urgency to it. He doesn't see a future or have anything in mind to get to. He's perfectly fine to just concentrate on getting well. And for Joachim, it's a very serious thing, his condition and trying to get well. I will just say, I'll not spoil anything about the story, but I'll just say that Hans stays longer than 3 weeks for certain reasons. But the real beauty of this book is to see Hans with a future that he's created for himself and that he was looking forward to. How that changes because he's in this space, in this very confined space. But these people in the confined space become, for good or for ill, they become a family. And even the annoying loud Russians, or the bad Russians because they're loud, this group of Russians that are sitting at a particular table are boisterous and loud. And they happen to be in the room next to Hans, so he hears them a lot. And he thinks that just hearing them is vulgar because they're so loud. His relationship with Frau Schochat, or Madame Schochat, as he first knows her. He knows her because she lets the door slam when she enters into the dining room. And he thinks that's so crass and that she must not have good manners. There is such a beautiful scene between the two that's a famous scene that's right in the middle of the book, and it's almost all in French. And of course I had to look up the French translation of this scene, and it's so beautiful. I think she's married. I'm not quite sure how that relationship is. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the pace of the book, I feel within the last third of the book, starts to quicken. You don't notice it at first. But it really starts with that snowstorm that Hans gets caught up in when he goes and gets a pair of skis or something like that. And he's just throwing a little bit of caution to the wind based on his prognosis or diagnosis. But he feels like he knows himself now. He's been tending to his self for quite a while, and he feels like he can go skiing or whatever it is that he's doing. I'm not clear whether it's skiing or snowshoeing. And a snowstorm comes in, and it's a famous chapter, and it is one of my favorite chapters. I have a lot of sections that are my favorite, but that certainly was a beautiful one. And it feels like after that, the pace just goes, and things are happening with people that you've gotten to know. Herr Settembrini is an older man that Hans is annoyed with. He just blathers on, and does he really have anything to say? And by the time that you're two-thirds through the book, you know Settembrini. Hans is now a companion or a friend. He would probably consider himself a friend of Settembrini. There are sad things that happen in this book that I won't go into. So there are things that have made them closer, and he's become chummy with the doctor and the doctor's assistant and a couple of the people that he's been with at the tables for the 5 times a day eating. When for the last time Frau Schochat comes back, she's with a friend or a companion. His name is Mynheer Peppercorn. And boy, what at the very end, for Thomas Mann to create such a character, Mr. Peppercorn, I'm sure he's not called Mr., but oh my gosh, what a romp that last part of the book is. And the fact that he's in the company of Frau Schochat and they're talking about how they had felt for each other. And it's just fantastic the way this book the way this book wraps up. I just didn't want it to end. I loved the, so just know about this book. It's comedic in its writing, but it's not slapstick. It's satire, and it's Hans being the person who's showing us the foolishness of all this stuff. And you see him transform into this place that maybe it takes the place of him not having a family. I don't know. It's not explicit, but it grows on you. And I just loved having this book as a companion whenever I wanted to pick it up. It's one of those books for me that I could be a while without it, and I could just pick it up and know who everybody was, because guess what? There weren't very many new characters. So you're with the same clan. It wasn't difficult to pick up where I left off. So I didn't have a problem with that. In the beginning, I just want to share with you part of the foreword, where the narrator shows up right in the beginning in the foreword. And he says, "We do not fear being called meticulous, inclining as we do to the view that only the exhaustive can be truly interesting. Not all in a minute, then, will the narrator be finished with the story of our Hans. The 7 days of a week will not suffice, no, nor 7 months either. Best not to too soon make too plain how much mortal time must pass over his head while he sits spun round in his spell." And now we begin. I won't share with you what the entire time period is that he's up there, because it mentions it there. I have that marked, and what do I have marked here? One of the chapter titles are so entertaining, especially after you know what they're about once you've read them. One of the chapters is called "The Great God Dumps." Once more we hear Herr Hofrat Baron's voice, that's the doctor. Let us give it our ear, for we hear it perhaps for the last time. Some day even the story itself will come to an end. Long has it lasted, or rather, the pace of its contentual time has so increased that there is no more holding it. Even its musical time is running out. Perhaps we shall have no further opportunity to hear the lively cadences of the Rhodomanthine tongue. The Hofrat, as the narrator is referring to the doctor, said to Hans Castorp, "Castorp, old cock, you're bored. See it every day. Disgust and ennui are written on your brow. You're collapsed like a punctured tire. If some first-class excitement doesn't come along every day, you pull a face as though you were saying, small potatoes and few in the hill. Am I right or am I not?" Hans Castorp said never a word, a sure sign that his inward man was indeed pervaded with gloom. "Right then, of course, as I always am. Well, I can't have you spreading the toxin of your disaffection all over my community, you disgruntled citizen. I must convince you that you are not forgotten of God and man, that the powers above have an eye, an unchanging eye upon you, and ceaselessly ponder your welfare. Old Barons hasn't forsaken you yet, my lad. Well, joking aside, I've been thinking about your case, and in the watches of the night something has come to me. I might also speak of a revelation. In short, I promise great things for my new idea, nothing more nor less than your complete cure and triumphal progress down to the flatland, before you can say Jack Robinson. I don't remember what Barons has come up with, but whatever it was, it gives you a taste of the dialogue. It can be dialogue heavy when the story isn't going off into diatribes that somebody is pontificating. I guess that's the word, pontificating. I am so smitten with Thomas Mann's way of writing this book and how delightful it is to be in its company that I have Buddenbrooks, however you say that, and I pulled it off the shelf a day or two after I finished this, and I started reading it because I was like, I have to keep reading Thomas Mann. But it might have been too soon. It wasn't Magic Mountain, so I don't know. I think maybe I'll try it at some point. Please let me know if you've read Buddenbrooks and the Magic Mountain, and is there a sense of the I don't know, inward joy or laughter or satire. I think Buddenbrooks is one of his first novels. It was written before this one, so I don't know. I do know Joseph and His Brothers exist, but I have no idea what that book's like. Let me know if you've read that one and this one, and you can compare it. So overall, dip in. This book trains you, I think, like War and Peace does, to hang in there and be patient and let people pontificate. You'll come back to the group. you'll come back to the dialogue, the witty and entertaining dialogue. You will. It'll come back. So yeah, I think this book has trained me. I was bogged down sometimes in those chapters talking about, oh, what is man and what is spiritual meaning and so on. But oh, it's so worth it to meet these characters and to hang out with them for as long as I did. I absolutely loved taking my time. I loved a slow read. So yeah, that's it. I don't know if I'm going to add anything to this video clip. I just wanted to share my thoughts here. If I do, then if I don't, then thanks for joining me. I'd love to hear anything you have to say about The Magic Mountain, Thomas Mann, any of it. I'll see you in the comments. Thanks for joining me.